So as you can see, we've got some good rain going. Now let's work on this street material a little bit. So first what I'm going to do, I'm going to set all these into a group just so they're out of the way. I'm going to set it up so that I've got little ripples on the ground. It's pretty easy to do. All you need to do is add in a wave texture and a Voronoi texture. And you can plug the distance of the Voronoi into the vector of your wave texture. You can then add in a color ramp, and we can add in a mix color node. We're going to plug this Voronoi into the color so we can change this stuff right here, our contrast of our Voronoi texture. We're also going to change the scale to something higher, like that. Next, we can plug this into the factor of our mix color node. We're going to plug the wave texture into the A slot, and then we're going to plug this, or we're going to pull this value down until it's fully black. Then what you're going to get is these little ripples. Now, you're going to want to change the scale of your Voronoi, or of your wave texture, sorry. And yeah, just make sure your Voronoi texture is a good size. So now, as you'll see, we have these little tiny ripples. They're going to go through a bump node so that they get like a little splash kind of thing going. And there they are. I like to set them to like 0.02 so that they're not nearly as strong. I also have a normal map for this texture. So what I can do is take this normal, plug it into the normal of the bump, and then they'll kind of overlap each other, which is nice. Something else I'm going to do also is I'm going to subdivide this plane. I meant to do that earlier. I just kind of forgot. Let's go back to this bump stuff. So, right, we have our bumps right here. I'm going to make them smaller, right? So we have more splashes like that. Now, to make these move, all you're going to do, there are two things we're going to do. First, I'm going to change this to 4D, and I'm going to add in a value node. We're going to set it with hashtag frame divided by something like 20, honestly. And we're going to plug that into the W slot of our Voronoi texture, which we changed to 4D. So it brings up this seed value that we can change on the fly. Now, you'll notice this is moving very, very quickly. So what we can do is we can add in a math node and slow it down if we use a multiply node and or a divide node. And we're going to turn up this value to like 5 or something. And that will slow this down. Maybe if I turn it up to another value like that. And there you go. As you'll see, we get a much, much slower rain. So I'm going to leave it like that. This looks kind of weird, and that's because our ripples aren't expanding outward. So before, I'm going to unplug that for now just so you can see what's going to happen. The way to make these ripples expand outward very quickly and very easily is you just change this phase offset. So simple. So the way to change the phase offset is we're just going to plug this value node directly into the phase offset. And then you'll see that that is, yeah, doing what it does. To make it go faster, plug it through a math node set to multiply. I'm going to multiply it by like at least 500. Okay, we're going to go 2000. And there we go. As you can see, we've got, you know, these ripples kind of running and doing their thing. Now, in order to make these ripples a little bit less, you'll see they kind of like overlap each other in weird spots, like right here. I'm going to just pull these values in, and it should get rid of most of them so that they're kind of their own little things like that, as you can see. One thing that's kind of weird though is that they all move at the same pace, if you know what I mean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate pretty much everything, and oh, let's also plug this back in, give it a second to load, and there we go. And I'm going to divide it by a higher number so it's, yeah, that looks much better. So 110. I'm going to duplicate all of this stuff. We're going to plug it through this multiply node. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in an add node, math node set to add, and we are going to keep the value at like 2000. Then what we can do is we can mix between these two textures, plug it into the height, and all that's going to do basically is it's going to offset our values so that they look a little bit more natural. And if we keep this set to like 50% and keep that strength up high, then you've got these nice looking ripples. Now, some things you may notice is that the object doesn't look very wet. Super easy to fix. There's a few ways that you can make puddles and stuff. In this case, let's make some puddles that react to this material. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go inside of this material, and I'm going to basically use the displacement as a map to determine wetness. So essentially, higher parts will be drier, and wetter parts or lower parts will be wetter. Which I know that doesn't really make sense. There will be more water. It'll appear like there. It's all going to be wet because it's getting rained on. What we're going to do is we're going to add in a mix color node to our base color. We're going to set that to multiply. Turn the value all the way up for now. We're going to plug this displacement into the B value. I'm going to add in a color ramp because that's just going to make things easier on our lives. And I'm going to bring these values closer together. And something like that, right? I can do this. It's going to make these crevices darker, as you can see. And if I really crank it, we're going to get a good result. So, here we go. We'll check this out. That looks pretty good. One thing, it's a little too dark, so obviously I'm going to turn this down just a tiny bit. It's just meant to look kind of wetter than the rest of the surface is going to look. Not necessarily meant to look like super wet or anything. Next, we're going to do the exact same thing to the roughness, basically. We're going to add in a multiply node here. I'm going to minimize this color ramp, and I'm also going to go into cycles just because it loads materials changing faster. So I'm going to add in another color ramp, Control-Shift-D, so that it's still attached to the same input. We're going to plug it into here. I'm going to turn this all the way up, and you'll see we get a lot of wetness on these areas. Now, in this one, I can have this be like a darker color overall so that everything's wet, right? And that's just going to make things look a lot better. Other thing I like to do is, once again, Control-Shift-D, copy this, and we're going to combine it with our normal map because it'll flatten out spots of those normal maps if we do it right. So if we set this to multiply, and we can use it to flatten out bits of our normal map, I'm going to set this back to white. And you'll see down here, right, it flattens it entirely. What I can then do is I can pull this black value down a little bit so that, you don't get anything too bad looking. And yeah, you'll have a pretty good looking map right there. Now, with all honesty, this works better with going through a bump, but it's okay. All we're trying to do is kind of make this look a little bit more puddle-like than it does. And yeah, I mean, something like, not like that. Something like that should work okay, where it's going to flatten out these lower bits, and the higher bits are going to stay, with their same level of normal mapness. And yeah, once we have that, the one last thing I would like to do is I'm going to grab this displacement texture, and I'm actually going to pull it out here as a color. Because what I want to do is mix color again here, and we will set it to mix, and I'm going to plug this displacement color into the factor of the mix, and then if I grab a color ramp, then I can pull these two values, closer together or whatever, and you'll see it's getting rid of our little ripples. Basically what I'm trying to do here is I just want it so that there's lighter ripples up on these higher areas. So let's go back to Eevee now. Right, we've got this stuff up in here. What I can do is make sure I've got higher ripples. So this is going to be white, and if I pull it up, you will see that these ripples go away entirely. If I pull this down, you'll see that these ripples kind of stay for the most part. And yeah, essentially it's just going to make it so that the ripples appear more in places like this. Also, something that helps a little bit is if you invert these ripples, then they kind of look like they're concaving the water downward, which is pretty nice. One more thing that we could also do is we could, if we wanted to, turn this coat on and turn up the weight, turn down the roughness, set our IRR to 1.333, so it's, same kind of thing. And we can plug the bump normal into there as well to really kind of drive this wet look. Where like there's a layer of water over top. Yeah, it looks pretty good. What I might do though is take out the normal map and separate it, right? So it's just this stuff, just the ripples, and it doesn't have all that other underlying stuff with it. And yeah, it'll look a little bit better in my opinion. That looks pretty good. If you were going to add like actual upward splashes as well, what I do is, I mean, it's kind of janky, but I like to add in a plane, and then I'll flip it in edit mode. I can add in a subdivision across this top piece, bring it down and inward, and I can scale these in a little bit, so I've got a little splash like that. And then we can add, you know, a cut here and a cut here, right? And just scale these out so they're more like that, right? That's realistic, I guess. And then I'll just select everything, RZ90, RZ45, or, you know, close enough to it. I'm going to set this to a new glass material because it just doesn't work with the Fresnel as well. So we can just add in a glass material, plug it into the surface, and IOR to 1.333, right, like usual. I'm going to add in a transparent as well again, and mix these two together. But if I change this factor, it'll, you know, appear a little bit less obviously, which is nice. And that's a translucent. I need transparent. Yeah, it'll just appear a little bit less clearly, which is a good thing. And I'm just going to scale that down, set it up so it's right at the bases at the origin point right there, right? And from there, I might also scale it by the cursor and shrink it down so it's a little bit more outward. What I can then do is do a basic kind of instance on point setup. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take the distribute points on faces and the instance on points. I'm going to Control-Shift-D, duplicate them, and we're going to grab this new instance, which is, I believe, just called plane. We can name that our own thing if we want. But if we just drag and drop it over here, it exists here. I can choose Pick Instances, and I'm going to plug this into the Join Geometry node. And I'm not going to click Pick Instances. That was an accident. But once we have that, I'm going to make sure to add in a random value node. I'm going to plug it into the scale. So we're going to get a little bit of a scaled down version. I'm going to change this to like 0.4 and this one to like 0.1 so that I always have splashes. Maybe 0.2 so they're a little bit closer in size, a little bit more uniform. I'm going to duplicate this random value again, change it to vector. The vector is going to go into the rotation value. And I'm going to set the top two to 0 and this one to just a high number in general. It's going to rotate it on the z-axis, so the splashes are facing semi-different directions. And finally, what I can do is, if I press play, you'll notice that that doesn't look too great. But if I grab a scene time and I plug it into, if I plug seconds into the seed, add another math node, and we'll make sure it's a regular math node, not a vector math. We'll set this to multiply, and we'll multiply it by any old random value. You'll see that that looks like junk, but if we multiply it by a high amount, then we get these little splashes. You know, you can try and play around with it so that they stick for a second, or you can just let it be. I like to just have it kind of move decently fast. I'm going to play around with this transparency just till I get something that I like, and that's, you know, not drawing too much attention to it, but it still adds the effect of splashes to it. And as you can see, yeah, that's a pretty good looking wetness. Now, honestly, something crazy you can do. If you want to see the rest of this video where I add a few more elements to this shader, then head over to my Patreon where you can see the full video and you can download this as an asset. If you like the tutorial, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out, and I'll see you in the next video.